This is the first lesson of this series. In this lesson, we construct the base genes. We will cover the following: tips when preparing the genes patterns for 3D, import DXF, arrange and prepare patterns, internal line symmetry, insert darts and pleats, stitch and simulate the garment. It is important to export net patterns only when preparing patterns in 2D CAD. This applies for all the patterns, including the welt pocket patterns and the pocket bags. We highly recommend that the patterns also include all necessary markings for details such as pockets, button placements, belt loops, and so on. Yes, we can add these markings when creating the garment in vStitcher, but it's more efficient to have the markings already available when we import the patterns. It's also important to export only the necessary patterns. Before we begin, you may pause the lesson here and challenge yourself. Use your knowledge from previous lessons to complete the following: import the DXF, organize the patterns in the 2D window, and create symmetrical patterns. You may also continue the lesson and follow along. To begin, let's import the DXF file. We go to the file, import, then select the DXF file. Ensure that Detect Corner Points and Import DXF Turn Points are both selected, as this optimizes the number of corner points on the patterns and makes the cleanup process easier. We rotate the patterns to be at 90 degrees. Genes creation is similar to pants creation in many ways, but genes creation includes more details like fly, pockets, belt loops, and darts. There are many more patterns when creating genes, and it can be confusing, so it's important that we identify and organize the patterns in the beginning. Before we begin the creation process, we look at the technical specification sheet to have a better understanding of what we're creating. We are creating a loose-fit, high-waisted pleated jean. It has a curved waistband with 5 belt loops. It has front slanted pockets. There is a coin pocket on the wearer's right. On the back of the jeans, there are back darts and welt pockets. Let's look at the patterns in the 2D window. We enable the piece information to easily identify the patterns. We can also turn off internal line selection so internal lines are not accidentally selected when we arrange in the 2D window. First, we identify the main leg patterns. Here we have the left and right front leg patterns and the back leg pattern. Then we have the waistband. We place the belt loop pattern above the waistband pattern. For the fly of the jeans, we have the fly pattern and the fly facing. Then we have the coin pocket. For the side pockets, we have the pocket facing and the pocket bags. We also have the welt pocket, pocket bags, and facing. We arrange the patterns in this manner. You may pause the video here if you need more times to identify and organize the patterns. The next step is to create symmetry. The front leg patterns are not symmetrical as a result of the internal lines within the pattern. We make them into symmetrical patterns so that it is much easier to stitch the garment. We delete the pattern without the J-stitch by pressing backspace on the keyboard. The next step is to create X symmetry for the pattern. Then we need to clear the symmetry property for some of the internal lines. Remember to turn back on internal line selection. We want the internal line for the J-stitch to only be on the wearer's left pattern, So we click the internal line on the wearer's left and clear the symmetry property. Next, we create X symmetry for the back leg pattern. The center back belt loop only exists on the wearer's left. For the belt loop to show only on one side, we repeat the previous steps. We add X symmetry to the back pocket bags as well. We do not need to create symmetry for the welt pocket facing yet because we will attach it later. Last, we only need internal lines for the coin pocket on the wearer's right side, so we repeat the previous steps. And now we are done with identifying and organizing the jeans patterns. We ensure the correct avatar is loaded in the 3D window. According to the specification sheet, we should use Olivia Denim. You can download the avatar from the lesson summary and import it into VStitcher. Once the avatar is loaded in the 3D window, we can prepare the patterns. Pause here to load the Olivia avatar in the 3D window if needed. Next, we arrange and stitch up the basic bottom. We stitch up the main leg patterns first. The recommended cluster for dressing pants is the side leg. Drag and drop the leg patterns into the side leg clusters and align them along the side seam. Click Prepare and the side leg cluster wraps the patterns around the leg. With the presence of the side pockets, we need to add the side pocket facing into the side leg cluster as well. Next, we adjust the 3D layers. Since the jeans have pockets, we increase the 3D layer of the leg patterns. We increase the layers of the leg patterns to layer 4. We may leave the pocket facing patterns at layer 2 for now. Now we stitch the patterns. We can use a single stitch for the side seam because there is a corner point segmenting the edge. We skip the lower section of the pocket facing as that section overlaps with the front side leg. In the 2D window, we stitch the front inseam to the back inseam. Since we do not create the fly now, we can stitch the front rise closed first and unstitch it later. We need to stitch the overlapping area of the pocket facing to the front pant leg at the waist. The stitches look flipped and the stitch lengths do not match. We flip the stitch. Then we select Match Edge Length to match the stitch lengths, or we drag the stitch point to match the point that shows along the stitch line as we drag it. We stitch the back rise as well. Before we click Dress, we need to add the dart on the back leg patterns. There are notches and points here to indicate the dart position. When a dart is not cut out of the pattern, we add an internal line and convert it to a dart. We select the pen tool and ensure the Edit Points is disabled. Then we enable Snap to Point. We draw the internal lines from the notch to the internal point and back to the other notch. Then using the Select tool, we click the internal line, go to the context view, and click Convert to Dart. The spec sheet shows the style has a pleat on the front leg stitched down 1.5 inches. Let's insert a pleat. Do you remember how to insert a pleat? You may try to do so now, or follow along with the video. Using the Insert tool, we click the drop-down and select Pleat. Then we click the waistline of the front leg at the notches to place the pleat. With the Select tool and Edit Points on, we position the pleat to match the notches. Drag the end point of the pleat to be perpendicular to the hem. To achieve an outwards-facing pleat, the thicker line of the pleat must be closest to the center front rise. Remember that the thicker line folds over the thinner line, indicating the direction of the pleat. Flip the fold direction if needed. We input 1.5 inches for the stitched value. Then we click Dress and Finish. Since we have not added the waistband, it may be a little loose. Ensure to finish the simulation before the pants drop. If we wish to, we may stitch the pocket closed first and unstitch it later, just as we did with the fly of the jeans. Overlap the pocket facing with the front leg pattern with notches aligned. Select the pocket opening edge on the front leg. In the context view, choose Trace as internal line. Now we can stitch from the pocket opening edge to the pocket facing. Great, we are done. Remember to save your file before you move on to the next lesson.